So while Bears quarterback Justin Fields got much of the attention on social media from Sunday after setting a QB record for most rush yards in a single regular season game, one quarterback down south is quietly making a lot of noise in the MVP discussion. Tua Tagovailoa's performance against the Chicago Bears was one for the ages. The QB threw for over 300 yards with 3 touchdowns and no picks, marking the second straight consecutive game he achieved this feat. Add on top of that, the Miami Dolphins are 6-0 in games that Tua has started and completed this season. The QB has made huge strides from last season when there was a lot of chatter about his health and question marks about his ability to throw a football. But with the acquisition of Tyreek Hill, this offense has been pretty terrifying this season. Then you also have running back Jeff Wilson, who settled into Miami's run game on Sunday as he ran for 51 yards off of 9 carries, which might not be much considering Chicago has one of the worst run Ds in the league. But it's interesting to see if this tandem of Mostert and Wilson could potentially add another scary element into this Dolphins offense. Receiver Jalen Waddle also had another strong outing as he scored a TD off of 85 receiving yards. In all the games Tua's played this season, they've beaten some pretty formidable teams in the Patriots, Ravens, and Bills, which just goes to show you that they are a serious contender. The only bad thing is that they play in the AFC East, which has now become one of the more difficult divisions after 20 years of mediocrity. Anyways, Sunday's game in Chicago was going to pose the Dolphins with a stern test. The meteoric rise of Justin Fields the last few weeks made this contest a tricky affair, particularly for a defense that had been struggling all season without much of a pass rush and the absence of corner Byron Jones. This game would also mark the debut appearance for linebacker Bradley Chubb, who was traded before the deadline last week. The Bears, on the other hand, were without their own linebacker Roquan Smith, who was playing at an all-pro level this season before he was traded to the Ravens. With that said, the offense under Tua performed remarkably while the defense left a lot to be desired. Miami struggled all game on defense as they let Fields run them down with his legs and just looked utterly helpless at times. Even with the addition of Chubb, they just continued to miss tackles and didn't seem like a cohesive group. But some of that should change over time, with Chubb getting more familiar with the defense. But going back to Tua, while he had a tremendous game, I'm sure there were a few passes he'd like to have back, particularly the one with Waddle where he was wide open for a score, but his pass was short, letting the defender to break up the pass. Nonetheless, this new Miami aerial attack is definitely one of the hottest offenses in the league. The Dolphins QB just looks completely different than what he did a year ago. His passes are getting to his receivers as he's completed almost 70% of his throws and just basically looks very comfortable in the pocket. His connection with Tyreek has just developed really quickly and he does not seem to be afraid to throw the ball deep. There were a couple huge pass interference calls against the Bears defense in the end zone, so teams are fully well aware of what Tua can do. And to think all this came from a rebuild that started 3 years ago is just crazy. I made a video about this on my other channel, MTC, where I do longer format videos, and this one in particular about how the Miami Dolphins leveraged the Laramie Tunsil trade to rebuild their franchise within 3 years is one you should check out. Anyways, the Dolphins head to Week 10 as they host the Cleveland Browns and face one of their former QBs in Jacoby Brissett.